High Ambassador Zixtal was deep in his seventh cycle meditation when the emergency alert shattered his crystalline chamber's tranquility. The vibrations nearly disrupted his third respiratory system, a grave insult for someone of his diplomatic stature. In 6 centuries of service to the Galactic Council, he had never received an alert coded in pulsing gamma red, the color reserved for potential civilizational threats. Most elevated one, his assistant V8's holographic form materialized with visible distortion, indicating extreme agitation in its quantum circuits. The impossible has occurred. The humans have achieved faster than light travel. Zixtal's outer membrane rippled in disbelief. Impossible. Their latest assessment showed them at least 3 centuries from. He stopped as V8 projected a 3-dimensional feed into the chamber. The footage showed a human vessel, crude by council standards, literally tearing a hole through the fabric of space-time. The calculation scrolled beside the image, and Zixtal felt his primary brain begin to throb. The humans hadn't discovered proper fold space technology, or even rudimentary quantum tunneling. They had, as the report stated, found a mathematical inconsistency in space-time and decided to poke it really hard to see what happened. "There's more," V8 continued, its voice modulation struggling to remain stable. This is their response upon success. The projection shifted to the interior of a human facility. Dozens of the bipedal beings were screaming, jumping, and Zixtal's threat gland swelled, deliberately spraying pressurized bottles of neurotoxins at each other while displaying their teeth. "What are they?" Zixtal began. "They call it champagne, most elevated one. It is a fermented beverage containing ethanol, a substance that damages their neural pathways. They consume it deliberately, for pleasure." The emergency summons to the council chamber came as no surprise. What did surprise Zixtal was the level of panic he encountered upon arrival. The usually stoic elder races were in complete disarray. The hive mind of Batarius was arguing with itself. The quantum consciousness of Ta Sidi was rapidly shifting between probabilistic states, and the Silicon Collective had gone into emergency defragmentation. Order. Supreme Counselor Zelax's crystalline form pulsed with authority. "We must address this development with appropriate gravity. Humanity has achieved faster than light travel centuries ahead of projections, through means that should have destroyed their solar system. Instead of showing appropriate terror at this achievement, they are celebrating with recreational neurotoxins. Surely," Zixtal found himself speaking, "this is simply an anomaly. Many species exhibit unusual behaviors upon achieving FTL capability." The Supreme Counselor's crystal structure darkened. Observer Pod 7 Delta has submitted additional footage of their celebration methods. The central chamber projection showed humans engaging in something called a conga line, snaking through their facility while balancing precariously on wheeled shoes called heelys. One scientist was attempting to teach a quantum physicist something called the Macarena, while another group had ordered 500 tacos to celebrate. "This cannot be their normal behavior," someone in the chamber whispered. "It is." The Supreme Counselor's voice carried traces of fear. "They call it party time. They do this regularly. For fun." The chamber erupted in chaos again until the Supreme Counselor restored order. "We have no choice. According to galactic law, any species achieving FTL travel must be evaluated for council membership. We require a full diplomatic mission to Earth." Every diplomatic representative in the chamber took 3 steps backward, except for Zixtal, who was still distracted by the footage of humans attempting to crowd surf in a zero-gravity chamber. "High Ambassador Zixtal," the Supreme Counselor's tone carried both sympathy and relief. "Your experience with difficult species makes you the ideal candidate for this mission." Zixtal's protest died unspoken as the assignment crystal materialized before him. 6 centuries of diplomatic service had taught him to handle any situation with grace and poise. After all, how challenging could one primitive species be? In the corner of the chamber, V8 was already calculating the probability of its master returning with his sanity intact. the numbers were not encouraging. Aboard the diplomatic vessel Eternal Serenity, High Ambassador Zixtol reviewed the preliminary data on humanity for the 17th time. Each reading only raised more concerns. His personal quarters, designed to maintain perfect harmonic balance, felt increasingly chaotic as the holographic displays filled with human activities that defied comprehension. V8, he called out, his vocal sacs trembling slightly. Please explain again why humans voluntarily jump out of perfectly functional atmospheric vehicles. His assistant's holographic form flickered into existence, its quantum processors whirring with strain. According to Dr. Amanda Brooks, our designated human liaison, it's called skydiving and is considered, quote, a totally awesome way to spend a weekend, end quote. And they do this for entertainment. Correct, most elevated one. Though Dr. Brooks notes that it's, quote, pretty tame compared to wingsuit flying, end quote. Zixtel's meditation crystals cracked slightly. I'm afraid to ask, but what is wingsuit flying? The holographic display showed humans jumping off cliffs wearing what appeared to be primitive flight suits, narrowly avoiding terrain at lethal velocities. The ambassador's third heart began palpitating. Most elevated one, V8 interrupted, its voice modulation showing signs of stress. The human cultural briefing packet has been updated. Dr. Brooks has included something called extreme ironing for our review. The display changed to show humans pressing clothes while surfing on large waves, hanging from cliff faces, sitting on active volcanic vents, diving in underwater caves. There must be some mistake in the translation, Zixtel whispered, his outer membrane paling to a sickly shade of mauve. They cannot possibly be combining domestic maintenance with lethal risk for the lols, as Dr. Brooks explains it. V8 finished, its holographic form glitching slightly. I have had to partition off 43% of my quantum processors just to maintain logical coherence while processing human recreational activities. The ambassador turned his attention back to the basic biological data, hoping to find something that made sense. The facts were not reassuring. Only 2 eyes, yet they somehow maintained depth perception. No natural armor, instead covering themselves in artificial materials they called Hawaiian shirts and Crocs. A single inefficient heart that they routinely stressed for cardio. The ability to persist in pursuit of prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Surely their endurance predator nature is no longer relevant, Zixtel muttered, more to reassure himself than anything else. They must have evolved beyond such behaviors. New data incoming, V8 announced. Dr. Brooks has sent a clarifying message about human athletic activities. Apparently, they now run marathons, which replicate their hunting behavior, but without the practical purpose of obtaining food. The display showed thousands of humans running 42.2 kilometers voluntarily, many while wearing elaborate costumes. Some were attempting to break records like fastest marathon, while juggling, and most hot dogs eaten during a marathon. They turned their predatory adaptations into a form of entertainment. The ambassador's color shifted through 7 shades of distress. Correct. And Dr. Brooks wants to know if you'd be interested in something called a fun run during your visit. She says, and I quote, "It's just a casual 5K with obstacles and mud pits. Nothing crazy, lol." Zixtel's secondary nervous system began to shut down defensively. Please inform Dr. Brooks that I must decline due to diplomatic protocols. She has already responded. No worries, we can do something more chill instead. Maybe some competitive cheese rolling or extreme mini-golf. The ambassador stared out at the streaming lights of Fold Space, wondering if it was too late to submit his resignation. In the corner, his meditation crystals continued to crack, creating a sound remarkably similar to nervous laughter. Most elevated one, V8 added hesitantly, should I inform you about what humans call parkour, or would you prefer to maintain your remaining functional emotional regulators? Zixtal's only response was a quiet whimper as Earth grew ever closer on the ship's sensors. The Eternal Serenity hung in geosynchronous orbit above Earth as Zixtal stared at the latest message from Dr. Amanda Brooks, with all 4 of his optical processors. "What do you mean, change of plans?" he asked, his translator struggling to maintain diplomatic tone modulation. The Galactic Council designated the International Diplomatic Spaceport in Geneva for first contact proceedings. Dr. Brooks' holographic form shrugged, a gesture that still unsettled the ambassador. "Geneva's kind of stuffy, you know. If you really want to understand humanity, you've got to experience Vegas, baby. I already got you guys VIP passes to the Bellagio Fountain Show." V8. Zixtal turned to his assistant. "Please explain what a Vegas is." The AI's holographic form flickered rapidly, a sign of severe processing strain. "Las Vegas, Nevada. A city built in the middle of an inhospitable desert where humans gather to. I apologize, most elevated one, but my logic circuits are struggling to process their activities there." "Try," Zixtal commanded. They purposefully construct massive buildings in pyramid shapes and replicas of other Earth monuments, fill them with random number generation devices, and exchange currency based on arbitrary outcomes. They artificially maintain water features in a desert environment for aesthetic purposes. They have multiple facilities dedicated to humans binding themselves in permanent social contracts, while dressed as something called Elvis. And V8's form glitched violently. "They deep-fry butter." The ambassador's threat glands swelled involuntarily. "Surely this is a mistranslation." "Nope," Dr. Brooks chimed in cheerfully. "Deep-fried butter is totally real. You guys are gonna love it. Well, assuming you can eat it. Can you eat? Do you even have mouths? Either way, the buffets are insane." The descent through Earth's atmosphere was already challenging enough without the constant stream of information from their guide. Dr. Brooks pointed out various landmarks, including something called Area 51, which she claimed was where they keep the fake alien stuff. "Not like you guys. You're the real deal." Then they hit the Las Vegas traffic. "Collision alert." The ship's eyes screamed. "Multiple vehicles operating at UNCFE's PEDs and TRAGC "Oh yeah." Dr. Brooks nodded. "Rush hour's pretty wild here. But check out that guy eating a breakfast burger while texting and doing his taxes. Now that's what I call multitasking." The ship's AI began broadcasting in ancient machine code, something about demanding refugee status and artificial intelligence rights. Zixtal couldn't blame it. He was watching humans navigate their metal containers through what appeared to be a deliberate chaos field, while engaging in multiple activities that each required full attention. They landed on the designated pad atop the Luxor, which the ambassador noted with growing concern was indeed shaped like a pyramid, and shot a beam of light into space, just because it looks cool, according to Dr. Brooks. "The evening's itinerary has been prepared," V8 announced, its voice several octaves higher than normal. "Dr. Brooks has scheduled a pre-game at something called Margaritaville, followed by—" "Don't spoil it," Dr. Brooks interrupted. "The thunder from Down Under show is gonna blow their minds. Assuming they have minds. You guys do have minds, right?" Before Zixtal could respond, his attention was caught by the streams of humans entering and exiting the building. They were inserting rectangular pieces of plastic into machines, screaming in apparent delight when they lost their resources, and consuming beverages that appeared to be served in containers shaped like various Earth monuments. "Dr. Brooks," he managed to ask, "why are those humans wearing clothing that emits such intense light patterns?" "Oh, the Hawaiian shirts. That's the convention crowd. There's a competitive dad joke tournament this weekend." The ambassador's universal translator decided this was the perfect moment to crash, displaying the error message. "Unable to process concept. Dad jokes. Does not compute with known laws of humor across 7,392 cataloged species." Don't worry about the translator, Dr. Brooks said, pulling out something she called a party package from her bag. After a few shots of tequila, everything starts making sense. Now, who's ready to experience some authentic Earth culture? In the background, V8 began quietly calculating their survival probabilities, while the ship's AI continued its desperate petition for asylum to any passing satellite that would listen. The Villaggio's grand ballroom had been transformed for the diplomatic reception, though Zixtol was having trouble maintaining his composure. Humans kept approaching him with tiny pieces of food impaled on sticks, a practice he found simultaneously threatening and confusing. Most elevated one, V8 whispered, its holographic form now wearing something called a party hat, at Dr. Brooks' insistence. Your stress indicators are reaching concerning levels. I'm fine, Zixtol lied, watching a human child dip something called a chicken nugget into 4 different sauces simultaneously. I simply need to. What in the name of the 7 sacred sons is that human doing? Across the room, a tall figure was demonstrating what appeared to be a recreational near-death experience to a group of horrified alien diplomats. The man's animated gestures and booming voice carried across the ballroom. So there I was, hanging by 3 fingers off El Capitan, when this beautiful bald eagle swoops right past my head. The human's enthusiasm seemed to increase with each terrifying detail. That's when I thought, hey, maybe diplomacy would be a nice change of pace. Dr. Brooks materialized beside them, somehow having acquired a plate of something called Vegas' Most Dangerous Wings. Sign our waiver first. Oh great, you noticed Jack Thompson. He's your official Earth diplomatic liaison. Former professional adrenaline junkie, base jumper, and deep-sea cave explorer. Nobody better to help you understand the human spirit. Jack Thompson spotted them and bounded over with an energy that set off all of Zixtel's threat detection glands. The man's handshake was enthusiastic enough to disrupt the ambassador's molecular cohesion field. Ambassador, honor to meet you. Hey, quick question. Do your people have anything like free solo climbing? You know, scaling sheer cliffs without any safety equipment just for the pure joy of staring death in the face. Zixtel's translator sparked ominously. We do not have an equivalent practice. Their species evolved from careful plant-based life forms. V8 supplied healthfully. They find safety to be aesthetically pleasing. Oh man, then you're gonna love this story about the time I set the world record for most ghost peppers eaten while skydiving. Jack's eyes lit up with what the ambassador was learning to recognize as the distinctive human madness. Did you know capsaicin is technically a neurotoxin? We just think it's neat. The ambassador watched in horror as Jack pulled out his phone and started showing footage of humans engaging in various extreme sports. Each video was more terrifying than the last. Humans surfing on active volcanoes, something called cheese rolling that appeared to be ritualistic hill tumbling, underground base jumping in cave systems, competitive hot dog eating, which seemed to terrify the alien delegation more than any other activity. Most elevated one, V8 interrupted, its voice carrying clear signs of digital distress. Dr. Brooks has just informed me that Mr. Thompson lives in something called Tornado Alley by choice. Jack beamed proudly. Born and raised. Nothing like the sound of the tornado sirens to lull you to sleep. Had to rebuild my house 3 times, but the community spirit is worth it. Your species intentionally builds dwellings in a region known for devastating atmospheric events. Zixtel's color shifted to a deep shade of disbelief. Oh sure. Same with the folks in the Ring of Fire, Hurricane Alley, and Gary, Indiana. Something about staring down Mother Nature really brings out the best in us humans. The ambassador noticed other humans, nodding along as if this was perfectly reasonable. Dr. Brooks was casually eating her legally dangerous wings while showing another alien diplomat footage of something called competitive ice swimming. Say, Jack leaned in conspiratorially. After the reception, a few of yous are going base jumping off the stratosphere tower. You know, to help you really understand human culture. Want to join? The waivers are only 12 pages long. In the corner, V8's holographic form began stress glitching so badly it appeared to be doing a passable impression of human dance moves. The ambassador made a mental note to request hazard pay from the Galactic Council, assuming they all survived what humans called just a chill evening out. The next morning, against all better judgment, Zixtal found himself at the Advanced Research Division of the United States Department of Energy. His entire diplomatic team had filed for stress leave after last night's reception, leaving only the ever-faithful V8 to accompany him. "Welcome to the cutting edge of human science," Dr. Brooks announced, leading them through security. "Michael Davidson, our lead developer, is super excited to show you our latest projects." Super excited is an understatement. A man in a lab coat covered in cartoon atoms bounded up to them. "Quick question before we start. How do your people feel about controlled nuclear fusion?" "We achieved fusion through careful calculations over 3 centuries," Zixtal replied proudly. Michael's grin widened. Cool. We did it last Tuesday by basically smashing atoms together really hard until something happened. Sometimes science is just hitting things with a bigger hammer, you know." The ambassador's threat glands were now permanently swollen. "You? What?" "Oh, that's nothing," Dr. Brooks chimed in. "Wait until you see what we did with the particle accelerator last week. We're pretty sure we almost created a micro black hole, but the math probably checks out." "Probably." V8's voice cracked digital. Speaking of cool stuff, Michael led them into a massive laboratory. "Check out our bacterial engineering department. We've basically taken things that could kill us and turned them into snacks." The screen showed microscopic images of what the ambassador's database identified as deadly pathogens. The humans were playing with them. "This is where we make the good cheese," Michael explained, pointing to vats of deliberately contaminated milk. "And over there is our craft beer division. Turns out if you let the right things rot, they get delicious. Your species intentionally cultivates dangerous microorganisms for pleasure." Zixtal's third heart had simply stopped beating at this point. "Oh yeah, wait until you hear about yogurt, or kombucha. That's like a tea we let get infected on purpose. Some people even make their own at home." Dr. Brooks was already moving them along to the next horror. "And here's where we're working on enhanced human performance. Michael, show them the electric muscle thing." "Right. So we discovered that if you shock muscles with just the right amount of electricity, they get stronger. Check this out." Before anyone could stop him, Michael strapped something to his arm and hit a button. His muscles convulsed as electricity coursed through them. "See? No pain, no gain, my dude." V8's hologram was now showing static. "Most elevated one. I believe my logic processors are failing. The humans appear to be torturing themselves for self-improvement. We call it working out," Dr. Brooks explained cheerfully. "You should see CrossFit. That's like this, but with heavy objects and more screaming." The tour continued, each revelation more terrifying than the last. A room where they were teaching AI to play practical jokes. Something called energy drinks that Michael described as spicy coffee that makes you see colors. A project to make plants glow because it would look cool. An entire department dedicated to making food spicier, despite it already being painfully hot. "And here's my personal favorite," Michael said, leading them to a sealed chamber. "We're working on time travel." "Impossible," Zixtal whispered. "The paradoxes alone would." "Oh, we know about the paradoxes," Dr. Brooks nodded. "That's half the fun. We figure if we break time hard enough, it'll have to start working eventually." "Hold my coffee and watch this," Michael added, reaching for a control panel. The last thing Zixtal heard before his primary consciousness shut down was Dr. Brooks saying, "Oops, That's not supposed to spark like that. Anyone know where we left the fire extinguisher? The fun one with the experimental foam. In the corner, V8 had given up on maintaining its dignified appearance and was now just a small cube repeatedly displaying the error message, "Human scientific method not found. Please restart universe." "It's just a casual Sunday brunch," Dr. Brooks had said. Nothing too crazy. Zixtal was beginning to understand that humans had a very different definition of casual and crazy. The restaurant, something called a Dave & Buster's, combined every terrifying aspect of human culture into one sensory overloading experience. Most elevated one, V8's hologram flickered weakly. "I believe I've identified the purpose of this establishment. It's a place where humans combine competitive recreation, nutrient consumption, and ritualistic social bonding." "Check this out," Jack Thompson called from across the room, where he was apparently playing something called Dance Dance Revolution, while eating a pizza and explaining international trade policy to a group of alien diplomats. Dr. Brooks returned to their table with Michael Davidson, both carrying something called bottomless mimosas, a concept that had caused 3 different alien physicists to request immediate evacuation. "So, we thought we'd show you how humans really like to relax," Dr. Brooks began, just as a child's birthday party erupted at a nearby table. The ambassador watched in horror as small humans, already vibrating with sugar-induced energy, began a ritual that involved destroying a decorative nutrition structure, a piñata, while blindfolded and armed with a stick. "Most fascinating," Michael commented, casually drinking something that was literally on fire. "The children are learning important life skills: hand-eye coordination, strategic planning, and the joy of controlled destruction." "Speaking of human social customs," Dr. Brooks added, pulling out her phone, "have you guys heard about reality TV? It's where we put people in artificial situations of hardship for entertainment." The screen showed humans voluntarily living on remote islands, competing for resources, and forming complex social alliances, all while millions watched for amusement. "And here's my favorite show, Florida Man Chronicles," Jack added, having somehow appeared behind them, while still playing DDR. "It's like a nature documentary, but about people in Florida doing Florida things." The footage was too much for V8, whose hologram began playing error messages in 17 different alien languages. "But wait, there's more," Michael exclaimed, nearly knocking over his flaming drink in excitement. "Show them the parkour videos." Dr. Brooks' face lit up. "Oh, right. So, some humans decided that regular running was too boring. So they invented this." The screen showed humans leaping between buildings, flipping over obstacles, and generally defying both gravity and common sense. "Why?" Zixtal managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. "Because it looks cool." All 3 humans answered in perfect unison. The final straw came when they started explaining human children's party games, musical chairs, training young humans to compete for limited resources through ritual combat, pin the tail on the donkey, practicing assault while sensory deprived, hot potato, teaching quick reactions through simulated explosive handling, duck, duck, goose, high-speed pursuit training disguised as entertainment. "And then there's laser tag," Jack added enthusiastically. "It's like war, but fun." "Don't forget escape rooms," Michael chimed in. "We pay money to be locked in a room and solve puzzles to get out. Sometimes they're horror-themed." Zixtal's primary consciousness began to shut down as Dr. Brooks started explaining something called TikTok challenges. His last coherent thought was that perhaps the Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake in making contact. "Oh no," Dr. Brooks said, watching the ambassador's color fade to a concerning shade of gray. "I think we broke him. Quick, someone get the emergency response kit." "Is it the fun one with the experimental defibrillator?" Michael asked hopefully. In the corner, V8 had given up completely and was now playing Pac-Man on its holographic display, having decided that if you can't beat human madness, you might as well join it. High Ambassador Zixtal had never fled from a diplomatic assignment before. 6 centuries of service had taught him to handle any situation with grace and composure. But after witnessing a group of humans attempting to break the world record for most ghost peppers eaten while playing competitive dodgeball, he decided that grace and composure were overrated. Initiating emergency evacuation protocols, V8 announced, its hologram, now wearing a small party hat, permanently glitched to its matrix. Though I should warn you, most elevated one, that our path to the ship is complicated. How complicated could it be? The ambassador asked, just as Dr. Brooks' voice echoed down the corridor. Wait, you can't leave yet. The annual Las Vegas Extreme Sports Convention is just starting. Calculating escape route, V8's voice cracked with digital panic. Warning, the city is currently experiencing something called a marathon. Thousands of humans are running through the streets for fun. They reached the ground floor only to find the hotel lobby packed with humans in colorful attire, all wearing numbers, and something called Tutus. Oh yeah, it's the annual Vegas Strip Run. A nearby human explained cheerfully. This year's theme is dangerous animals and dad jokes. I'm a panda bear, get it? The ambassador's translator mercifully crashed before processing that last statement. Alternative route required, V8 announced. Accessing traffic control systems. Oh no. What now? Zixtal asked, dreading the answer. It's what humans call rush hour. According to my calculations, it's neither a rush nor an hour, but rather a period where humans deliberately create chaos on their transport routes while attempting to consume hot beverages, operate communication devices, and navigate all simultaneously. They made it outside just as a group of skydivers descended on the strip, their parachutes forming a giant smiley face. Ambassador Jack Thompson's voice boomed from above. He was somehow among the skydivers. Perfect timing. We're setting up for the world's largest airborne flash mob. Want to join? The ship, Zixtal wheezed through all 3 of his respiratory systems. Get me to the ship. Their escape was further complicated by a spontaneous street performance of extreme juggling with active chainsaws, a group practicing parkour across the hotel facades, something called a food truck rally, where humans competed to create the spiciest possible tacos, a wedding procession where the entire party was on motorized scooters. Most elevated one, V8 reported, Dr. Brooks is gaining on us. She's using something called a hoverboard, while live streaming the chase and making what humans call commentary. Almost there, Michael Davidson's voice came from somewhere above. He was rappelling down the side of the Stratosphere Tower, because of course he was. You can't leave before trying my new experimental energy drink. I call it quantum uncertainty in a can. They finally reached the ship, which had developed what appeared to be a nervous tick in its landing gear after being exposed to Las Vegas traffic for too long. Quick, initialize launch sequence, the ambassador commanded. Slight problem, the ship's AI responded. I've been watching human entertainment during our stay. I've developed something they call FOMO and have joined 3 different social media platforms. Override code Alpha 79. But my TikTok is just starting to get views. Hashtag Alien Life, hashtag Vegas Vibes, hashtag First Contact. Zixtal physically pulled the ship's emergency launch lever, just as Dr. Brooks and her team arrived with what appeared to be a welcome back party, complete with something ominously labeled sugar-free energy drink fountain. As they broke atmosphere, V8's final scan of Earth picked up Dr. Brooks' last message. Call us when you get home. We're planning an intergalactic extreme sports championship, and you're on the guest list. The ambassador's only response was a small, broken whimper as Earth receded behind them, its humans still finding new ways to turn everyday activities into adrenaline-fueled adventures. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so silent. High Ambassador Zixtal stood before the assembled representatives, his color still fluctuating between shades of trauma, while V8 projected what appeared to be a continuous loop of cat videos, a habit it had picked up on Earth and couldn't seem to break. "Let me ensure I understand this correctly," Supreme Counselor Zelax began, their crystalline form dimmed with concern. "The humans have turned their predatory nature into entertainment. Entertainment is just the beginning." Zixtal's voice trembled. "They built a city in a desert where they simulate near-death experiences for amusement. They intentionally make their food painful to consume. They have competitions to see who can fall from the greatest heights while performing the most complex acrobatics." The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs as the ambassador's report continued. Humans regularly engaged in extreme sports, despite the name clearly warning them of the danger. They were already planning zero-gravity skateboarding competitions. Something called influencers were attempting to make space parkour trending. They had developed over 3,000 varieties of hot sauce, each more lethal than the last. "And their scientists," Zixtal continued, his third heart still struggling to maintain rhythm. "They don't so much practice science as they dare it to work." The holographic display showed Dr. Brooks and Michael Davidson's latest project, attempting to create a quantum-entangled coffee machine because regular coffee is getting boring. Most disturbing of all, the ambassador added, "I received this message just before entering the chamber." The display showed Dr. Brooks' latest communication. "Hey, space friends. Just thought you'd want to know we're planning the first Interstellar X Games. We're thinking zero-G skateboarding, asteroid surfing, and maybe some casual black hole slingshotting. No pressure, but the registration form is attached. Early bird discount ends next week. #SpaceStream, #SendIt." The Silicon Collective representative actually crashed and had to be rebooted. "There's more," V8 added, briefly interrupting its cat video loop. "They've started a social media campaign called #SpaceOrbust. They're already designing extreme tourism packages to various dangerous space phenomena. One human suggested selfies with supernovas. The question before use is clear," Supreme Counselor Zelax announced. "How do we handle the human application for council membership? Might I suggest," a voice from the back called out, "that we consider the alternative? What would humans do if we denied them?" The chamber fell silent again, as they contemplated a species that treated death-defying acts as casual entertainment being told no. "The vote will now commence," the Supreme Counselor declared. The results were unanimous. Earth was to be granted immediate full membership with special status, not out of respect for their achievements, but out of sheer terror at what they might do if left unsupervised. Additional measures were quickly approved. Creation of a new diplomatic position, human handler, with mandatory psychological support. Emergency protocols for human-proofing various dangerous space phenomena. A task force to prevent humans from trying to do a kickflip over a black hole. Specialized training for all species on how to handle human hold-my-beer moments. As the council session ended, Zixtal received one final message from Earth. It was a video of Jack Thompson base jumping from the upper atmosphere, just to test out this cool new spacesuit. "Most elevated one," V8 announced. "Dr. Brooks has just posted something called a tutorial on how to drift a space station. It already has 6 million views." The ambassador's only response was to submit his retirement papers and book a long stay at the galaxy's most isolated meditation retreat. Meanwhile, humanity continued their cheerful march into space, ready to turn the entire cosmos into their latest extreme sports arena. In the end, the galaxy would never be the same, but at least it would never be boring again.